I would like to welcome you to the kickoff conference of the T20 process of the German G20 presidency. I'm very happy to see you all here. I'm very happy and very proud that Professor Röller is with us. Professor Röller is the Sherpa of Chancellor Merkel for the G20 process, and the most important starting point of our T20 process of bringing knowledge together from all G20 countries today is to listen to Mr. Röller and to engage with Mr. Röller and to discuss the German presidency's agenda for the G20 process in 2017, which is starting today. So this is the opening ceremony, not only for the T20 process, but the 1st of December is also the starting point for the German G20 presidency. Therefore, we are very proud and very happy, Mr. Röller, that you accepted our invitation, because we know that your agenda is very, very dense. I wanted to mention to all of you who made it to Berlin today to participate in the G20 kickoff conference that we are already in dense interaction and communication with the government, and that the doors are open to interact with the T20. And this is a good chance and a huge opportunity. And I think that we need to exploit this situation of interest of the German government to interact with intellectuals, academics, and the T20 network itself. I would like to formulate some introductory remarks before I hand over then to Dennis Noah and afterwards to Professor Röller. We are taking over now from the Chinese G20 presidency, and we as T20, we are taking over from the Chinese T20 presidency. And I would like to thank you very much, formulate a thank you and a big congratulation towards the Chinese T20 process, because you have been achieving a lot of very important things. In cooperation and interaction between T20 and G20, we saw that during the summit in China several weeks ago, the 2030 agenda issue and the Paris Agreement has been integrated in the G20 process, which is very, very important. This has been the first G20 summit after Paris and after the 2030 agenda. And it has been achieved to bring this into the agenda of the G20, and we will need to organize next steps. But this has been a very important achievement. We are meeting now here at this T20 kickoff meeting, and we are discussing about next steps within the G20 context in very important times, with huge opportunities, but also important challenges. And I wanted to make 3 very brief points to mention these opportunities and challenges which we are confronted with. The first one is that we think, from our perspective, the German organizers of the process now, that it is still very important to emphasize the 2030 agenda as being part of the G20 process towards the future, and the question of how to implement the Paris Agreement. There is no automatism at all. China made the first step, but this remains very relevant, and we would like to emphasize this. And this will be part of our deliberations towards the next 2 days. Paris, its implementation, and the 2030 agenda is something like a basic structure of an emerging global social contract towards a sustainable global economy. First observation, many opportunities, but many challenges to move into this direction. The second point, the global economy, only some observations here. Still relatively low growth in the European Union. Still high employment of youth in the southern parts of Europe. In emerging economies, we observe periods of transition. Growth is slowing down. Imbalances in the global economy. Imbalances regarding trade. Financial markets still under stress. Debt issues still relevant. Taxation issues challenging all nation states. 0% interest rates internationally. The risk of new bubbles which might grow up. So the international financial markets still in a difficult situation. The digital revolution as a driver of global change for the global economy, for employment, but also regarding the impacts on how we organize our societies at large, democracy, participation, digital economy, and not at least Africa. How to strengthen Africa. We have been seeing that globalization has pushed growth forward, has pushed trade forward. We see a new middle class, homo erectus, emerging, but Africa is still in a difficult position. What can we do about it? The global economy, a huge agenda. And then there is a third thing which I would like to mention, and this is about a world in turbulence. And two observations here. The first one is the world in turbulence is about new wars, conflict dynamics, refugees, so stabilization is at stake. And members of the G20 itself are part of this turbulent dynamics around wars and conflicts and refugees. So this is the first observation here. The second observation is that we are living in a world in which populism, xenophobia, nationalization, renationalization, nationalist movements, our country first movements are gaining importance based on centrifugal dynamics in all our countries. So we need to find answers here, because this is not only a question about do we have different opinions regarding incremental changes of economic policies or social policies. If you take these kind of dynamics and movements seriously, they are challenging the basic structures and fundamentals and pillars of our global interdependently connected world as such. This is about global cooperation and strengthening global cooperation, strengthening multilateralism. It is about open and fair markets, or putting those into question. And it is about open societies, organizing participation and inclusiveness. If we don't get these basic pillars right in all our societies and internationally, globalization as such might be at stake. So we are living in turbulent times, many opportunities, many challenges. And we'll afterwards listen to Professor Röller, how the German government frames this panorama under the umbrella of terms like sustainability, responsibility, and resilience, to give orientation, and as I understood it, to combine a larger vision, a midterm and long-term vision, with very concrete changes and policy initiatives. And we are going to listen to Mr. Röller afterwards. Some last words on the T20 ourselves. What are we going to start here? We will have this kickoff conference, bringing our minds and our brains together. And based on that, we have been, as you know, organizing 9 task forces. I think this is an important innovation of the T20 process. In these task forces, and we already met this morning to organize the process, we will produce policy briefs. And we will try, Mr. Röller, we discussed this, no? We will try to develop and formulate suggestions and recommendations as concrete as possible. And this has been put up in our discussion again. I'm looking to Mr. von Braun. He said it is not only about policy recommendations, it is about implementation. So it is about policy and politics and polity. No, we need to think about the institutions and where to move those, into which direction, and how to bring things into political processes. And we will try to be as concrete as possible. And we thank Mr. Röller and colleagues in the government a lot that we get this communication on the ground. We are here together during this kickoff conference with 300 colleagues from 18 of the 19 G20 countries. We do not have representatives from Saudi Arabia, but all the other ones are here. This is as such a huge achievement, I think. We are really representing the research community focusing on G20 issues from the G20 community at large. And I thank you very much that you accepted our invitation, that you accepted to be here together with us during these 2 days. We hopefully are going to see you again during the next steps and during our next conferences. And we are expecting your policy recommendations being formulated in the policy briefs which task forces will be formulating. So, thank you very much to all of us. Thank you very much for starting with our work. Let's get started now, because the time span to get results on the ground is very, very narrow, but we are optimistic to get good results on the ground. I wish us creative and open discussions and deliberations, and I'm looking forward to our results afterwards. But before we start pushing the discussion towards Professor Röller, Dennis, you are going to formulate some suggestions and ideas also. Dennis, it's yours.